to Apple Tree Cottage here in the Scottish borders. This is episode 31 and it's airing on the 15th of July 2025, and it's lovely to see you. I just wanted to take a moment to thank all the people who have subscribed, all my new subscribers, and also everyone who has been commenting so beautifully on my episodes. I have to say the comments are really encouraging to me, and I just really enjoy everyone who takes the time to put a little of their thoughts, perhaps some recommendations, and even I've been given what they've been inspired to start, which is absolutely lovely. So long may that continue. Now, last episode was about knitting, and that may have been a bit of a shock for those of you who come to my channel for samplers. So I've come back to samplers. It's completely samplers today. Not that I'm ceasing to knit. I will be going on with that garment. But this episode today is all about samplers I have been stitching in the last week. And I thought I would start today with a little idiosyncratic French sampler that Blackbird Designs have taken and made into their own, called My Heart Can Rest. And I'm really enjoying stitching this. That is the original sampler, and you can see that it's quite faded, and the border is really idiosyncratic. I don't know how old the girl was who stitched this, but there is a real naivety to it, and which I'm finding very, very refreshing, especially when I'm juxtaposing it against really quite fiercely large and intricate samplers that you will see towards the end of the episode. What have I done? Well, I'll tell you first. I'm stitching this on R&R Reproduction 36 count winter brew, and the actual recommended linen is Heartland by Picture This Plus. Well, I couldn't find that, so I went with another absolutely lovely one, Winter Brew, which I think suits very well. The recommended threads are a mix of Classic Colour Works and Weeks Dye Works, but I am really absolutely loving working with silk at the moment, and so I went with my own choice of silks, following the colourway pretty closely, I have to say, pretty closely. There is a change in the Blackbird design. The original little building, which could be a little chapel or a little house, has got a flag on top, and I decided to follow that rather than the large bird that Blackbird had put on there. I prefer the flag. So this is where I have reached. It's not a very big sampler, and this week I have made the flower and the leaves, and I'll probably work down and actually do the basket, so the flower is sitting in a basket. So just gradually working down. As I say, it's not a very large sampler, and just taking my time over it. So that's My Heart Can Rest by Blackbird Designs. So with the next one, I decided to go with another Blackbird design, but this time with one that I was going to perhaps change a bit. It's Moments of Glad Grace. And I thought what I would do is play around with this. And as a result, I'm really enjoying it. I am absolutely not religiously following this. I do with other charts, I really do. And in a way, we should respect the designer's choice as to how they've worked to design. But on the other hand, Blackbird Designs themselves have taken an original and changed it. And you can see the original is here on the back. The colours are really quite dark, and that's the lower part of it. If we got a photograph of, yes, we do. Here's the original here, and we can see that it's very dark in colour. And what Blackbird did was to seriously enhance the colour and add quite a lot more, in fact. I think they retained the border. And I decided I was going to, as I say, play around with this, not only the actual design, but the colours as well. As a result, I'm really, really enjoying it. The original calls for does it say what it calls for? Yes, it must do somewhere. 36 count legacy by Picture This Plus with classic colour works, gentle arts and Weeks dye works. So there's quite a mix of thread here as well. The sampler size will be 10 and an eighth inch by 8 inches. So it's quite substantial. I decided to go with a mix of thread too, but choosing very much my own colours and potentially adding quite a few more colours to it, and more subtle variation in colour is what I'm aiming at. So far there's a DMC as well. So far, there is a real mix of colour. There. And I want to get depth as well. So I'm finding the DMC, it is 3802, is adding depth to the design, and I think making it rather more sophisticated. I've also seriously extended the central flower motif. In the original, there are just 3 flowers, and I decided to make that into 5. So making a much larger a motif in the center with varied colors. There's more varied, there are a larger number of colors of pinks in the center flowers there, and just making it more interesting, I think. And then with the border, I may not extend the border right round, I'll see. But certainly this week I was stitching a great many leaves. I used tarragon for that. And perhaps you can see that I've actually made the little flowers larger by adding another stitch on either side of the central stitch. And I think that just makes the flowers rather more interesting. So no idea where it's going from here, but it is a nice change to be a little bit creative and be following our own choices to a certain extent, still being guided by the original design and coming up with something that is personal to me and something that I'll really like to frame and put up on the wall. Now, the next one is a slight departure from my usual. I have designed in the past, and I certainly have charted some of them, and some of them are even on my Etsy shop. But I've never shown you this, and I thought, no, let's just pick it up and run with it. It's, as I say, my own design. And I'm calling this Mary Hamilton. And I don't know if I'll put a date. I don't know if this is going to be a sort of fantasy one where I'll write Mary Hamilton and the date 18 something or another. I don't know. I'll maybe make it into, as I say, a fantasy one. This is actually, a lot of the design so far is inspired by a Scottish artist, Jessie M. King. And I've done rather more of the design itself, not all of it. I haven't finished the entire design. It's still going step by step. But I have, I've added birds. So perhaps, well, certainly maybe in a 2 or 3 weeks time you'll see that. I'll bring it out because I'll stitch the birds next. And I'm rather proud of this border. I have to say, it's my own design of border. And I decided to use silks again, rather. I think most, well, a great many of the samplers that I'm showing you today use silk, and often use Gloriana silk. And I apologise to people like Narissa, who was telling me in New Zealand it's impossible for them to obtain Gloriana. That's really frustrating for you. I do hope that you're able to substitute Gloriana with other silk of similar colours. I just hope it isn't putting you off my using Gloriana most of the time. Now you'll see that every second rose of the rose trees is different. So there's two colorways. There's a pinkish colorway. That would be here, the pink and red colorway here, which are 2 separate threads. And then this flower here is actually just one thread. So it's every second flower has that. And that is a Gloriana, an absolutely lovely Gloriana silk called Flowers of Italy. And it was quite, I had to go to America for this to get it. Had to go to 1, 2, 3 stitch, and I'll tell you, I had to go, yeah, it's a longer story here. I started this and I designed most of the chart, and then I moved house. I moved here, and I moved from my studio that I was living in into my lovely cottage, and everything had to be packed away. And unfortunately, we were warned, for heaven's sakes, just label absolutely everything. And unfortunately, in the move, I think at least 1 box went. And I couldn't find this. And I couldn't find another one. And in the move and settling in and all the rest of it, I don't know if you've moved house, but by the time I'd settled, I thought, well, I've just got to leave that to the side. And then I searched for it again, and I knew that I had used Flowers of Italy, and I searched, and I thought, well, it's gone. Unfortunately, it's all gone, and all of that silk, all of that Gloriana silk is gone as well. And so, you know, I was just resigned to that. And then a couple of years later, it turned up. It was in the bottom of a linen box. But the other one has vanished. I have no idea where that one went. And the silk went. So there you go, moving house. Anyway, I then remembered that it was Gloriana Flowers of Italy. And of course, you know, it's sort of integral to this, to the design, to the colour of it. that if I couldn't get a replacement, then I was a bit stumped. So I'd searched and searched, and the only place I could find Gloriana Flowers of Italy, I think it was actually, I couldn't stand up in court and swear to that. I think it was 1, 2, 3 stitch. It was certainly America I had to send to United States. And it took rather a long time to find, and even longer to reach me. So this is this happened a year ago. So here we go. It's out. I'm going to be stitching it, and I'm certainly going to be finishing the design and charting it, and at some point or other will be up on the Etsy shop. So you can follow me through with that one and see how we get on. And I do hope, if you want to eventually get it, that you'll be able to obtain this silk, because there's nothing more irritating, is there, than not being able to put your hands on something that's pretty integral to the design. Anyway, now another one that this is the very first sampler I ever bought, and if you followed me in another episode, you'll know I'm quite a spiel about this, but I bought it and then I hadn't got a clue, because I'd never stitched samplers before. It was one thing I'd never done, and I didn't know about count. I didn't know about 1/2. I had no idea what that was supposed to mean. So, and then of course just stitching it, I just wasn't up to it. It was beyond me, because it's on 56 count, and I'm stitching it on white, I think, and it's the Rhapsody in Red ribbon sampler. And I tend to buy charts when they keep jumping out at me until finally I can't ignore them anymore. And that was the case with this one. It just kept coming up and jumping out at me. Stitch this, buy this, stitch this. So that's why I bought it. But then of course it sat for a few years. And a few episodes ago, I was telling you about a CC embroidery, and then I was thrilled to find out just a week or so ago that this actually has panels in it that are a CC. So it's come round, as the Irish say, what goes around comes around. So it seemed to be like a circle had closed and come to some sort of completion. There was a reason there. Maybe I sort of graduated to the point where I can actually stitch it. I'm loving it. I'm thinking this week that what I will do is actually use it as my one thread a day, stitching it in the morning. On the other hand, you really do need very good light for it. I'm stitching a lot in the garden at the minute. We've got very lovely weather at the minute in Scotland, and slightly showery, but more or less absolutely gorgeous. It's using cranberry and crimson. I'm using Gloriana. That's actually what's asked for. And you wouldn't have thought two reds together, but they look wonderful together. They absolutely do. And of course, I'm loving working with silk. I might, as I say, do one red thread, make this the one red thread in the morning, each morning. And this is where I have reached. That little bit there is a trial shot. And then I started properly. I think this was about my 4th attempt at beginning it. See, I got into it. Now I'm loving it. I'm wondering what was all the fuss about. And I've finished the block. I've come along the top border and started in on the next section. And it just takes focus and concentration and patience. And now and again I do make a mistake and have to come out and look at it again, because a sampler stitching at this level isn't just, a sampler stitching at any level, I think, isn't just about the ability to be working with needle and thread. It's also the ability to read a chart and it's also the ability to apply a chart. And this is where there are 3 skills that are combining, and this is where it's quite a challenge. I have a new start. It's out of one of my absolute favourite Blackbird designs books, Ooh La La. I know very many of you have been using this book and thoroughly enjoying. It's just jam-packed full of absolutely gorgeous designs. I decided to start this one here, The Last Rose of Summer. And I may take my time over this. As a matter of fact, my last rose in my garden tends to be in November. My roses go right through the autumn, some of them, which is amazing. So I don't know where, I really don't know where summer ends and where roses end. Anyway, The Last Rose of Summer is actually, I just realised I have a story for that as well. The Last Rose of Summer was sung by one of my piano pupils in Ireland when I lived in Ireland, and she came one day, and she was actually a singer, and I'm sure they don't mind me talking about this, and her name was Rose, and her mother came to me one day and said, you know, Rose says she's going to sing in a hall, but she thinks it's the village hall, and we were living in a relatively small village at the time. She thinks it's the village hall. Well, it was the Carnegie Hall, and she sang The Last Rose of Summer in the Carnegie Hall. She was invited over. I can't quite remember how old was she, 12? And she was invited by President Clinton and his wife to go over to sing in the White House, The Last Rose of Summer. And then she sang at the Carnegie Hall. And I didn't teach her singing, actually, I have to say. I taught her piano. So that's a lovely memory. I hadn't thought of that. Here we are. The Last Rose of Summer. So I will think of Rose. I will think of Rose when I'm stitching this. Now, it calls for 36 count gingerbread by Picture This Plus. And I'm not stitching it on that. Have I dropped it? It's vanished. Anyway, I am not stitching it on that. I am using another one here, and I don't know, it's gone, it's vanished. It's absolutely vanished. Quite extraordinary. I had it a minute ago. Okay, well, let's pause for that, and I tell you what, having got carried away with that story, I'll go on to the next one, and I will come back to The Last Rose, because I will show you my progress on that. Let's pop it down there. We'll come back to The Last Rose. Now, the next one, you have been following me. It's alternating weekly with Merrily, Merrily We Welcome the Spring, another Blackbird, come into my garden, and this is my favourite. I just love this. I'm stitching it on 36 count country mocha, vintage country mocha. It calls for 36 count velt. I didn't have that, and frankly I think that might be a little bit dark. I know other people are saying they're not so happy with the velt. I'm finding the vintage country mocha absolutely ideal for this. It just is rather more sandy in colour, and so it is a wonderful foil to the threads. I'm using the recommended threads. I'm working down, actually I've got my little clips in the bottom here. I'm working down. I did do the bottom border at the beginning. I got a great deal of the border done first of all. I certainly had the skeleton of the border done. And then I put in some of the little sections in the border, including the bottom. I got that done before I started in on the alphabet. And this time around, because I went off, and as you know, I got into knitting. I haven't done the side, I call them rooms, side motifs as I've come down. I've just launched straight into the basket, which you can see here. I haven't even finished the house. Isn't that naughty? I'm not very happy. I'm not very, I don't know, houses are not my bag. They're not my bag at the minute anyway. So I'll do a few rows of the house now and again as I'm working down. But isn't that absolutely beautiful? It's just gorgeous. It's just gorgeous. I'm going to weep when I've finished it. I don't know what I'm going to replace it with, because I'm just absolutely loving it. It almost stitches itself, and the sizes of the motifs are just the right sort of size for the length of thread, number of thread, and the time that you have to stitch, which isn't always the case with some samplers. You find that you've got halfway through a leaf and the thread's finished, or you only manage half of a leaf or a leaf and a half before your time's up. With this one, it just seems to be one that you can aim for a motif and have a satisfying finish. So there we are, that's that. Still some way to go. I still have 2 birds and a few flower motifs and the box. I'm not sure which name I'm going to put in yet. I'm thinking about it. And then also, how many flower motifs do I have to do around the side? Not that many. 3. But this is being alternated with the Merrily Merrily. So we still have a few sessions of this, definitely a few weeks, definitely on that one. Now, Charlotte Frost, I'm enjoying very much because it's one of those ones that again is utterly different to most of the designs that I normally do. It's the Scarlet House, and I think the girl who stitched it, yes, she was 11. So again, like the French one, My Heart Can Rest, this has an innocence to it. It really does. It's very straightforward. Not many colours. I'm using DMC. I actually chose it for the verse and for the sheep. I wanted, I have another one I'll be doing, I think it's called 7 Sheep. And I have another sheep as well, I'll show you in a minute. So I wanted to have a theme of sheep, certainly on part of my wall. And I'm using 37 count corn tassel, which is by Access Commodities, and this is what was actually asked for. So I'm being very good with this one. I'm following it to the letter with the linen, with the thread, and also just following the design. So this is being very obedient with this one. And this week I've started on, I have accomplished the 3 flowers there, and then I'm starting to do the stalk of the plant there. So gradually working on it. I wanted to come down that border pretty quickly, and I have to say what I will probably do is go and complete the skeleton of the border. I may come around and do the skeleton of the border. I might before I do much more of jumping around, because I need to know that they are placed correctly. Anyway, it's Psalm 23, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me, and it has butterflies, 2 butterflies. It has swans under the trees. It's really delightful. It's very straightforward, very simple, and there's a quietness to it, I would say. So you may want to have a look at that. and see if you want to do Charlotte Frost 1846. So here we are at the last rose of summer, and I decided to use a piece of fabric that I had already, linen, Picture This Plus 36 count Legacy. And as I said, the actual recommended linen is gingerbread, 36 count gingerbread by Picture This Plus. So it's still Picture This Plus, but a slightly different colour of linen. And I decided to use it because I'd actually started Moments of Glad Grace on this, and then realised it was going to be too small. And so it's going to be fine, because the Last Rose of Summer is actually, it's a box top, I think. Yes. So I can take this away and I'll just cut it away. And this is as far as I've got, so not very far at all, but it's certainly enough fabric. It's rather nice when you have a little bit like that you can then use and end up with something absolutely delightful from what would simply be a small scrap of fabric. Make it into something absolutely, utterly wonderful, taking a few hours and a variety of threads, and ending up with a little work of art, an heirloom. It's magic, isn't it? It's just wonderful. I think it's wonderful. And here are my threads, and I think they are the called for. Oh, yes. They're mostly the called for. They are all DMC, but I did substitute, I think I substituted 3 simply because I didn't have, they're being used for other work. So I'm quite fortunate because I also have anchor, but I do have my DMC threads. I've made my own sample book and numbered it. I don't think I've ever shown you that. But I've made my own. It's not a sample card, it's sample book, because there's so many DMC, but I have them all numbered, so I can look through my book and make substitutes, and then just go to my drawers and find a substitute. So that's the Last Rose of Summer. Now, the next 2 are quite large. Quite large. We have Anne Grant. This is my work bag that I made for it, and I'm absolutely loving Anne Grant. This is another one I really struggled to begin with, like the Rhapsody in Red ribbon sampler. It took me a while, it really did. And at one point I thought, I don't think I'm going to be able to manage this, it's so complicated. It was the border that attracted me. Teresa Vinette, Shakespeare's peddler, also called Kitten Stitcher. She has the original up, the smaller one there. Anne Grant, 1829, and then she stitched the model on a much lighter fabric. And what had attracted me was the pink of the border, and this is where I have reached now, and I've been working along the top as well, working along the top there. This is a Zweigart. I think again it's number 3009, I know that. NPI silks, and the pink is called Camelot's Lady, and the alphabet is in Algerian eye stitch, which I'm loving, absolutely loving. It's so beautiful, and that the reason that I made the work bag was to keep it safe, so we don't drop any tea or coffee on it. which would not be a good idea, would it? We really need to keep hot drinks away when we're stitching, absolutely. And also have our hands washed, our fingers not sticky. It's quite difficult because the sun here in Scotland is relatively strong, and so all my family members say, oh no, you will put on sunscreen, won't you? So yes, I put on sunscreen, and then I put on sunscreen and it's all over my fingertips, and then I can't stitch, which is really irritating. So anyway, but you've got to look after your skin. Now, I'm just going to put that there, and I'm going to show you the last one for today. But before I do that, I'll just show you a little French box. My younger daughter lives in France, and when she visits, she brings me French sweeties, which don't last very long. But this is just a lovely box, and just to show you, quite a few of my silks are in here as well. Keeping the silks nice, mostly Gloriana. So, coming on to my last one of today, and I didn't make a work bag for this one. I decided to put it into a box, which is rather nice as well. And if I had the time, I would be decorating the top of the box. But of course, we have to choose what we're going to do in life, and the choice is samplers and knitting, of course. This one is wonderful, and I see that Narissa of Narissa's Stitching Lifestyle, she was showing this quite recently. Sheep may safely graze, that's from the Bach cantata, Alice Smith, 1841. And the photograph, this is all that we get of the photograph as a guide. Well, obviously you get the chart, but there's nothing larger than this. So we're just getting an idea of what the original would be. This is the original. This is the original. It's produced by Victorian Rose Needle Arts. Preserving the Past with Heirlooms of Tomorrow, and it was published in 2018. And if you think you're up to it, honestly, it's absolutely beautiful. Now, I'm not someone who is necessarily interested in doing a complete reproduction. Some of you will be horrified, but frankly, that's got to come. That's still a Mount Everest for me, to actually go with something that is a proper reproduction. I wanted to get this stitched and enjoy it, and I didn't necessarily want it to look old. This isn't important to me. So I'm using white, Zweigart white. This is 50 count. And I'm using my own, I'm using this as a guide, but I'm using my own choice of silk. So it's a bit of an interpretation, I would say, very close interpretation, but with some leeway. Artistic license is what they call it. And this is where I've reached. I've gone way down on this. This goes down and down and down. I think I've reached the bottom. Down and down and down and down. Yes, I've reached the bottom there. Just so, and I probably will go right round, so I'm quite happy with that. But anyway, this past week I added the bud and leaf. Here, there. That bud and that leaf is what I've done this morning, actually. And I am using Gloriana, and I used, I think it's called Pigeon and Cabernet and Olive Grove, and I think it was Evergreen. So I am, it called for 2 greens and 2 reds, I think. And so I followed that. So I'm following the chart, but using my own colours. And the reason for that is that a great many of the roses are actually faded, and they've been interpreted as a sort of golden colour, and I wasn't happy with that. But of course, I happen to know, of course, that I'm not going to come out with that result. I'm going to come out with something different, and something that will look relatively modern in comparison. But I just love this. I adore roses, as you probably realise, and this is another challenging one, and very enjoyable. So I do stitch in the garden, and I have a big round tray, and I pop my scissors on there, my little china dish for the end threads, my needle case, and the threads and the hoop. And I just keep them there on the tray, and then I have a table over here which is out of camera, where my samplers piled up with my little bento boxes for the different samplers with their threads. And I just check that I have the right thing with the sampler of choice for the moment. And off I go into the garden and sit, and my frog, or frogs, I don't know how many, are jumping in and out of my pool. The birds are coming and are having washes in the pond, which is lovely, and my roses are just delightful. If you look at my previous episode, you'll see at the end photographs of my garden, which is just full of roses at the minute. And of course, Casper comes and has cuddles with me. So a lovely summer is what I'm having in Apple Tree Cottage. I'm not going on a cruise. I'm not going on an retreat. I'm not going on holiday to Venice or anywhere exotic like that. I'm here in Apple Tree Cottage because this is where I love, and this is where I actually am on permanent holiday and permanent retreat. But I'm also doing a great deal of stitching, as you can see, and I'm just absolutely loving sharing it with you. So on we go again. I have more family to stay very soon, so I'll just see how many episodes I'm going to manage across July, but hopefully, certainly there will be one this coming week, and then we'll see, and stitching as we go. So have a great week stitching, and thank you so much for watching, and see you again soon. Bye bye.